So today we are going to talk about how we can do security testing for web application and how this could be made really easy. And as the headline said, all you need is Zap. We are going to focus to see how we can do it with Zap. So let's start. We're going to start with seeing what is the problem we are trying to solve. You probably hear about the term DevSecOps. It's kind of the hottest trend currently in the security world. If we try to summarize it to pretty simple terms, it basically talk about shifting in the security world from being the gatekeeper to being the enablers to enable team to move fast and still be secure. And DevSecOps is part of the shift left paradigm. Well, the shift left paradigm talk about that we have multiple phases in software development. Usually we start with a commit, and then there is a build, there is test, and then finally we release the software to production. So if shift left paradigm talk about running tests as soon as possible and getting feedback fast and give it to the developer and the team as soon as possible, shift left paradigm for security or DevSecOps is pretty much the same. The idea is to run security tests as soon as possible and not to wait until the last minute before releasing to production, which is basically giving faster and better feedback, which allow team to fail fast and fail safe, and all sound pretty good and pretty amazing, and I guess everyone will want that. But it's not that simple. Security testing is pretty challenging, and it's challenging because there are three types of tests you could run. You could run static analysis, which is SAST. You could run dynamic analysis, which is DAST, and if static analysis try to look on the code and find the vulnerabilities in the code, dynamic analysis is more interesting on looking on your app when it's running, look at the traffic, see what it's doing, try to send a malicious request to the app, see how it handles it. And of course, there is combination of the both integrated, which is YAST. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on DAST. And I want to see if we're able to build a DAST solution that is simple, free, and valuable, which is very important. Now, before we see how we can do this, let's start with a live demo. I will show you how I build a DAST solution for web application, and we'll see it working. If you want to run the demo, all you need to do is get the code, and then you can run it with one simple command. Don't worry, if you don't familiar with Docker, we're going to talk about it soon, so don't worry about that. Now let's watch the magic happen. If you have any questions, now it's a good time. You can write it in the chat, taking a look. If not, so let's go and see it running in the demo. So as I said before, this is simple, one command, and it's starting. Okay, so it's starting to do things. Let's see, it's going to produce a lot of output. Now it's like warming up, continue to warm up. And we're starting. And see that a lot of things going on the screen, a lot of initializations, and soon we will be ready and start the test. Okay, so initialization completed. Now the test actually starting. Test is running, a lot of output going on. And that's it. Test completed. Let's see what it's found. It's created, reported, saved it to HTML file. And we already have a raw output. We can see there are many alerts here, many things that Zap was able to find. For example, abscess of anti-CSRF token, private IP disclosure, which is pretty nice, but it's not on the things we can see. As we saw before, there is a report file that we can open to see nicer output of the results. So we can see that we have the headline, we have description, we can show where it find it, the evidence why the tool thinking there is an issue, and there is even a solution. So this is pretty nice, pretty valuable, and it's pretty cool. And as you saw, it was simple and fast. But let's talk about how to build this, or what is the building blocks that enable this demo. So we wanted a Dust for web application. It means that we are starting with a web application. And usually if you have a web application, you already have any kind of UI automation. Now, what I'm going to add is add Zap, which we'll talk about it pretty soon, between the UI automation and the web application, and then use this as the Dust solution. Let's see how. But before we start, let's talk a bit about Docker, as this is the foundation of the solution. If you're not familiar with Docker, Docker is a way to create containerized deployment, where a container, pretty much like real one container, is a way to package your code, your application with all the dependencies that it needs, like the operation system, the dependencies it have, like Java, and your actual code. Put it in a container, and then you can easily create it and easily share it. You just give the container to anyone who wants to run it. If we say we have web application, Zap, and UI automation, each one of these blocks is a container. So it makes it very easy to run it on every computer. But you probably gonna notice that we have multiple containers. And how we can manage that? This is another tool called Docker Compose. Docker Compose is a tool that allows us to manage multiple containers, and it's basically one command to rule all the containers. And pretty much like Docker, it allows us easily to build and share complex deployment, more than one container. So this is how we can easily share this solution. Now let's dive into how it works. So we say we have a web application. Here I'm using JuiceShop, OWASP JuiceShop, just to demo the Zap as value. JuiceShop is an intentionally insecure web application developed by OWASP. That it's an educational project that it is intentionally insecure, as I said before. It's pretty nice to play with it. It has a lot of vulnerability available, and the idea is that if Zap was not able to find anything, then it's not valuable. And of course, it has official Docker image. So this is the web application or JuiceShop. This is how JuiceShop is looking. Again, pretty cute. You're really invited to go and try it out. Now, let's talk about the next part, Zap. Zap is a free and open source security tool, and it has two modes. It can work either in active or passive mode, where in active mode, it actually tries to run malicious requests against your application and see how it handles it. And in passive mode, it just listen on the traffic, see what's going on, stuff like that, and then raise alerts. So we are using the passive mode, and it has both API and CLI, so it's pretty easy to use it in a continuous integration environment. And of course, it has official Docker image. This is examples of all the rules that Zap has for passive mode, where a rule is simply a definition that if this is the traffic, how to know if this is a vulnerability. So you can see that there are many, many rules. I highlighted a few, like information leakage or missing security headers like STS or CFP, but there are a lot others. And of course, as it's open source tool, you can always write your own rules or contribute another ones, and it's pretty easy to extend it. Now let's talk about the UI automation test code, or why do you need it all UI automation? So here I'm using the UI automation to work Zap to our web application. Usually the UI automation is browsed to all of the pages in your web application, and if Zap is looking at the traffic, you will be able to look at all of the app. Here you could use actually any automation framework. I used WebDriver.io, but you could use any other framework again. I use it because it has simple JavaScript API. And here we are not using official Docker. We are taking our test code and ship it into a container so anyone could use it. This is an example of how test look. You can see that it's pretty simple. You just say, I want to open this URL. I want to get the title and test that it's not empty. This is one very simple way, but you can do a lot of other complex examples. Now, after we talk about the building blocks, let's see how it's actually working. Again, it's opportunity to write any questions if you have in the chat, or just raise hand. I will check if there is something. Okay, so if no questions, let's continue. So now let's take a look and see how it looks, what's going on. So this is the configuration of the Docker Compose we talked about. You can see that we are configuring the different containers we have. We have the container that run the test, we have the container that run Zap, and we have the container that run DevSecOps. There are other containers here, but I'm not going to go into it right now. It's out of scope of this webinar. Let's take a look at this shell script. This is what actually run the Dust. So this line run the automation test, and the other lines controlling Zap. Those lines start Zap and wait for Zap to start and tell it to look on this URL, which is JuiceShop. And then we can tell to Zap, okay, anything that match this regex, I really don't care about. If there are any issues there, just ignore them. You can see that I choose to ignore anything that is borrow component, that is just minimize code. I don't really care what's going there. And then after the test completed, I can go and tell Zap, okay, now generate a report in HTML format and save it to here, so we can take a look at it like we did before. And then I tell to Zap, show me all the alerts, and I want to show it to show all level, but you could also choose to say only medium and above or only high, and it will fail, and it will set the exit code to 1 if it found any alerts. So it makes it really easy to use it in a continuous integration environment. This is the test code, as we talked about before. It's pretty similar. I just opened another URL here and check that the title is OWASP. And that's it. So again, it's pretty simple, really easy to reuse it. Now, let's move next. You're probably asking yourself, okay, I want to give it a try. What I need to do? This is really simple. All you need to do is fork or clone the GitHub repo. You need to modify it a bit. You don't want to run it against JuiceShop with the test I have. You want to replace JuiceShop with your application and the test with your tests. And then you can just put it in your CI environment with a TeamCity or Jenkins or whatever you're using. And then you can just relax and watch it working and know that someone watching your back, and you don't need to worry about this point. Okay, so this was pretty cool. What now? Let's talk about feature plans. What else I will want to do with this solution? What is missing? The biggest thing is alert processing. You saw that there are many alerts, but probably not all of them are interesting. We would want to say for some of the alerts, okay, I want to ignore this alert, or I want to postpone it, or things like that. Currently, this is not possible, but we could do it with Glue. Glue is another tool from OWASP that they call it a Swiss Army of the security tools. The idea is that to take a lot of security tools, and there are a lot of security tests out there, and create uniform output from each tool. And then on this output, Glue can do filtering and reporting, so you can filter the alert and you can add report to TeamCity, Slack, Jira, whatever you want. It's pretty interesting tool, worth to take a look. And so this is one thing that I would like to see. Another thing to try here is, instead of using the existing automation test, use a dedicated security test that only browse to the app and don't do more than that. It could be also interesting. And it also will be nice to, after we finish the automation test, tells the app, okay, now go and run active mode, which will try also to send malicious data, and it will probably get us better value. So this will be interesting. And if you're thinking about mobile is a bit more complicated, and for mobile, usually it's a bit easier only to test the REST API. So if you are thinking about how we can test APIs, there are other ideas here. For example, Zap has support for Swagger or OpenAPI. Swagger or OpenAPI is a simple way to describe in JSON how your API looks, what are the different paths that you can call, and then you can give that to Zap and tell to Zap, okay, this is my API, now go and test it. And Zap will do it. very, very easily. You can look at it Google, so easy to use it. And another idea is that if you have REST API, and for that REST API you add kind of black box test or a smoke test or end-to-end test that try to do request against a live API, you can use Zaproxy, the same things I used here. Just proxy the test code with Zap and then look on the alerts. It will work pretty well. So let's do a conclusion. We wanted to build a DAS solution that is simple, free, and valuable, and I think now we should know how. We are using it where I'm working at Soloto, and it's working pretty good, pretty well, so we're really enjoying it. And one last word about open source. We're using a lot of open source tools here, mainly Zap. So when using open source, it's important to remember that open source need you. So if you're enjoying a project, go ahead, start it, try to see if you can contribute to it somewhere. It's really important. It makes it better. Open issues if there are things that are missing, and it will be really good. And that's it. If you have any questions, now is a good time. You are also free to contact me after this, and I will gladly to help you.